In this lecture, we start to talk about the first organ system, which is the cardiovascular system. From the name, this is heart with the blood vessels. As we know, blood vessels, we have arteries, we have veins, we have capillaries. Usually, the arteries carry blood away from the heart, whereas the vein carry blood toward the heart. And the capillaries is the site of the gas and nutrient and waste transferred, and usually it's the site for the connection between the arteries and vein. Usually the level of blood oxygenation is not part of the definition. For example, the pulmonary artery carries unoxygenated blood, whereas the pulmonary vein carries oxygenated blood. There is some area, this, this system is a closed system, and there's some area where there's a direct connection between the arterioles and venules. Typically, we have artery, arteriole, then we have capillary, then we have postcapillary venule, then we have the veins. But sometimes there is some shunt area, bypass area, where we have arteriole is directly connected with the venules, and we will talk about that later. The blood vessels have the common structure. All of the blood vessels consist of three layers: tunica intima, tunica media, and tunica adventitia. The tunica intima consists of simple squamous epithelium, which is simple squamous, and this epithelium is called endothelium. Underneath this epithelium, we have a small layer of the subindolying connective tissue. Sometimes we have this structure here, which is the internal elastic lamina, and usually this internal elastic lamina limits the tunica intima from the tunica media, and most of the time the tunica media is consist of smooth muscles. The outer layer here is the area of the dense irregular connective tissue, which is the tunica adventitia. The three layers together form the microscopic and histological appearance of the blood vessels. Again, we have tunica intima, media, adventitia. Intima, we have the endothelial cells with the subindolying connective tissue, and here we have the internal elastic lamina, or sometimes we have the external elastic lamina, which limits the tunica media from the tunica adventitia. In the large blood vessels, in the tunica adventitia, we could find blood vessels, and sometimes we could find even nerves. These blood vessels that found in the tunica adventitia, we call it vasa vasorum, whereas the nerve is the nervi vascularis. And usually these have more important in the veins rather than in the arteries, because in the arteries almost for to this area here is supplied by diffusion, and we need a little bit of blood supply to supply the rest of the layers of the arteries or blood vessels. Whereas in the vein, as we know that it carries unoxygenated blood, so it needs a larger blood supply and more vasa vasorum. So the first layer, which is simple squamous epithelium with the subindolying connective tissue, with this layer, which is the internal elastic lamina. As I said, they limit tunica intima from the tunica media. The second layer we have this layer here. This is the area of the tunica media, and mostly this wall and the arteries reinforced by smooth muscle. There's an increase in the strength by the presence of these smooth muscle. The outer layer here, which is the tunica adventitia, which is dense irregular connective tissue. Sometimes we have another layer, which is the tunica serosa, and usually it should found this area here as a simple layer from the simple squamous epithelium, which is the epithelium. For the classes of the arteries, we have three classes of the arteries. We have elastic artery, we have muscular artery, we have the arteriole. The largest, which is the elastic artery, and usually these arteries, which is the aorta, pulmonary, and subclavian, they are very large, and the wall is reinforced by elastic fiber. The second type, which is the muscular artery, which is the distributing arteries, like femoral, renal, brachial, subclavian. They are, axillary. Subclavian is part from the elastic, most numerous. And the small arteries, which called is the arterioles, which consist of the thin walls. As we can see, there is continuous gradation exist between these categories. As we can see here, we have large, then smaller, then it's get smaller. So these are the elastic, muscular, and finally we have the arteriole. For the elastic artery, this is the largest blood vessels, highest pressure. The wall is reinforced heavily by elastic connective tissue. We can see these fibers. As I said, as example, we have the aorta and pulmonary artery. Again, you can see just elastic fiber. We could not resolve or see the smooth muscles. This one here is the elastic artery. The elastic artery, as we said, conduct the blood to the muscular arteries. The best example is the aorta, pulmonary, brachiocephalic, common carotid, subclavian, and common iliac artery. All of these are part from the conducting portion. From this and after will be the muscular artery. They have elastic fibers. These elastic fibers of the intima form incomplete internal elastic lamina, and it's not easy to differentiate the internal elastic lamina from the middle layer, which is the tunica media. Underline the epithelium, we have layer, subendothelial layer of loose connective tissue. Tunica media, very thick, contains between 40 to 70 concentric elastic sheath which surround the artery. The adventitia usually is thin and composed of elastic and collagen fiber. So we see here, this is the area of the tunica intima. This is the epithelium and layer of loose connective tissue, not easy to resolve the internal elastic lamina. All this layer here is the layer of the tunica media. As we can see here, it consists of concentric layers of elastic sheath. Outside here, we have the tunica adventitia, which is dense, irregular connective tissue. If we increase the magnification for this area here, for example, we can see all what we have here is the elastic sheath, and there's no smooth muscles. The second type, we have the muscular arteries, which is the most numerous, distribute blood to the major organs, for example, femoral, radial, axillary. All of these are muscular. The wall contains smooth muscle. All of these structure here are small, smooth muscle cells. Again, it consists of tunica intima, media, and adventitia. As I said, these muscular distributing deliver blood to the organs. Intima, thinner than that of the elastic, will develop internal elastic lamina, which limit the tunica intima from the tunica media. Underneath the epithelium, we have the subendothelial connective tissue. Then we have the tunica media, and this consists up to 40 circular layers of the smooth muscles. Interspersed Between this layer of the smooth muscle, we have elastic fiber. And finally, we have thick external lamina, which limit the tunica intima from the tunica adventitia. For the tunica adventitia, again, it consists of a dense, irregular connective tissue. So this is the tunica intima, this is the epithelia, which is the simple squamous subendothelium, and at this layer here we have the internal elastic lamina, which limits the tunica intima from the medium. Again, this is muscular artery, this is the epithelium, and this is the internal elastic lamina. See in this slide here, with a special stain we could resolve the internal elastic lamina and the external elastic lamina. Internal elastic lamina limits the tunica intima from the tunica media, whereas the external limits the tunica media from the tunica adventitia. After that, we have the arterioles. Usually the arterioles, the diameter less than 0.5 millimeter, very sparse endothelial connective tissue. Internal elastic lamina may or may not present. Media, and this is very important, it just consists of 1 to 3 layers of the smooth muscle. So if we have more than 3 layers, then we are talking about artery. But if only contains 1 to 3 layers of a smooth muscle, then it will be an arteriole. Adventitia is a layer of loose connective tissue. Also, there's longitudinally arranged collagen and elastic fiber to reinforce and increase the strength of the arteriole. So this slide here, this is the arteriole, this is the epithelium, and we can see here the layers of the smooth muscle. Again, this is arteriole, this is the area of the endothelium, and this here is the area where we have the smooth muscle, and the layer that found outside will be the layer of the tunica adventitia. Most of the time, these arteriole, as I said, will be supplied by nerve and also supplied by blood vessels. Blood vessels for the nutrition of these arteries, especially the large arterioles, and also nerve, because these arteries contain in their wall smooth muscle, and it's under the control of the autonomic nervous system, which is the sympathetic and parasympathetic. And also there is a pressure sensor in some arteries to control the blood pressure.